I got to spend a couple of extra days at home as I was sick and feverish and thus unable to be around others. You can probably still hear a little bit of phlegm in my voice. I apologize for that. During this time in my chair, I had the rare opportunity to watch daytime television and catch up on some old reruns of Star Trek: The Next Generation. I know, nerd alert. In one episode, the ship's crew encountered a human colony that was genetically engineered for perfection. Each person was genetically bred and crafted with certain gifts and skill sets to carry out a needed function for the society. The people of the colony saw themselves as an enlightened and utopian society until one of the top scientists decided she wished to leave. The colony then realized that her departure would leave them vulnerable, as it would leave a hole in their carefully planned society and roles. There was no one else equipped to do what she could do. This reminded me of today's gospel passage as Jesus sends out the 12 two by two. In the gospel, the apostles have already been shown to be dim-witted, slow to understand, and lacking in the skills one might expect to be needed for success in this mission. From a human resources standpoint, they are completely unqualified for the job. However, by sending them forth without anything else to rely upon, no money and no provisions, Jesus intends to show that the mighty works achieved at their hands will come from the power of God, not from their human efforts. Often we can be intimidated by the call of the Lord. Sometimes what he asks of us seems implausible or even impossible. But this is because we think in terms of ourselves and our own inadequacies. But the old saying says, God does not call the qualified, but qualifies those whom he calls. What we need to realize is that not only does God not set us up for failure, but created for communion with him, each of us has an important role to play in the kingdom of God. Therefore, when he calls, we need to be ready to respond, trusting that God's power will make up for our own insufficiencies. Unlike the genetically manipulated people in the Star Trek episode, we are indeed very flawed. But nonetheless, each of us is created with a distinctive calling and part to play in God's kingdom. And if we refuse to heed the call, the human family will indeed suffer for our sinful stubbornness. I'll leave my brief reflection on today's readings there. But for now, I'd like to shift gears. What I'm about to share is my bulletin letter for this week, but due to the seriousness of its contents, I wish to share it here during Mass, and for those watching via live stream. As of last weekend, I have now been assigned to the Co-Cathedral for over a year. The year has been full of challenges for us, just like it has for everyone else, as we have sought to weather the COVID-19 storm. I've been very pleased with the way our people have responded, and am deeply grateful to all who have worked so hard to allow for life to carry on here at our parish, even at times under modified conditions. I am particularly grateful for those who have continued to support the cathedral financially, even while many have suffered their own financial hardship with loss of jobs, furloughs, impacts on local business, and the like. We were fortunately able to survive the COVID-19 storm through running a very tight ship on our budget, greatly reducing costs, and through the continued stewardship of others. Even while our collections went way down, we were able to weather the storm. Now that we're returning somewhat to normal, or perhaps differently said, emerging into a new normal, we begin a new fiscal year as a parish. Deacon John Carrera and I have worked hard with our staff and programs to set a new budget that is a middle ground between past years and the one that just ended. As we resume normal activities as a parish, our costs cannot help but increase again. Likewise, restoring parts of the music program, the security needed for longer hours and more activities, and even new activities will increase the parish's needs. Unfortunately, this also means that these costs will cause us to surpass what our collections over the last year would have allowed. In the previous fiscal year, the Finance Council gave the guidance to artificially reduce the budgeted collection needs each week in order to realistically meet the expected reduction during the pandemic. Therefore, the numbers in our stewardship section of the bulletin each week for the last year have reflected these artificially suppressed goals. Starting this weekend, you'll notice that the budgeted goal is much higher. These numbers simply reflect a return to our normal baseline as a parish, pre-pandemic, and reflect what is needed to be fiscally healthy as a parish in the long run. This will likely mean that in the short term, our weekly financials will be bleeding a lot more in red ink as we adjust. I hope that seeing this gap between where we are and where we need to be, or need to get back to, will inspire all parishioners to reevaluate your current giving and to prayerfully consider whether or not you are in a place to increase giving. As I've already said, I am deeply grateful for what has been given during the difficult last 16 months. And I also understand that many households are still hurting financially. I know that others have been able to rebound to normalcy. What I'm simply asking, especially if your weekly contributions decreased during the pandemic, is to prayerfully consider whether you are in a place to return to previous levels of giving, or, God willing, a higher one. I want to be clear that none of these new numbers we'll be showing are an increase in our overall budget. That would not be prudent in the current time. They merely reflect a return to our standard pre-pandemic budget level. While the financial steward in me does not like planning to spend above the previous year's giving levels, I also realize that we cannot put off a return to some of the critical activities in our parish, such as in-person faith formation, prayer, liturgy, the meetings of our ministries and organizations. These activities will be resuming in August and September, whether we are ready or not. They will resume because they are at the heart of what we do as a parish. Therefore, I hope our community can step up to the challenge at hand. In our parish paradigm of worship, belong, grow, give, and go, we'll begin to reach beyond the starting and ending point of worship and return to those activities of community, Christian formation, and discipleship that are at the core of our mission. I pray that all of us may dig deep in prayer and stewardship so that we can continue to support this great mission and grow as a parish community of discipleship and divine encounter.